Hello out there. Thank you so much for joining us today for this Search Engine Journal webinar. Hope you're having a great day. Today, I have Shrikant Lanka, SVP of Digital Solutions at iQuanti, and Irina Klein, Senior Manager Director and Head of Digital Marketing at OneMain Financial. Shrikant, Irina, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Awesome. So if you haven't been to an SEJ webinar, I'm Heather. I'm going to be your moderator today, and I'm super excited to talk about some of these. Well, not me, but our team here today is going to talk about trends in paid search, how you can navigate the digital landscape in 2024. So for all of you doing your planning, this timing is perfect. So with that, I'm going to go over some quick housekeeping. That way we can turn it over and get today's session underway. So if you have any learnings from today that you want to share on social, use hashtag SEJ webinars. If you experience any technical difficulties, use the chat box to let us know. And while I'm going through these housekeeping, if you can use the chat box, let us know where you're coming in from today. Love to see where everybody is. So if you need closed captioning, it's the little CC in the top right of your screen. Just give that a click. And you can add any questions. We're going to be doing Q&A at the end of the presentation. So if you do have any questions related to today's content, you can use the chat or the Q&A tab to let us know what you'd like us to ask. With that, there's a little thumbs up option. If you see a question that you like, give it a little upvote, and it'll tell us it's important to you all, and we'll do our best to try to answer that at the end. We will have today's slides. You will get today's recording and any resources in your inbox later today. So watch for that. And that's enough for me. So I'm going to turn it over to Shrikant and Irina. Thank you all. I love seeing these people. I see someone from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, very close to me here in West Virginia. So with that, I'm out of here. I'll see you all at the Q&A.
Thanks, Heather. Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Shrikant Lanka, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Digital Solutions at iQuanti. I've been in the industry for about 20-odd years, working in various areas. I lead what we call as owned, earned, and paid media, experts in that space, and have been working in this in this particular topic for quite a bit. Previously, have headed programmatic account strategy for Google, where I was there for a decade, and I'm excited to be here. A little bit about what we do at iQuanti. iQuanti is a digital marketing firm, primarily with focus on providing performance marketing solutions for various clients across the industries. We're located globally. We are a partner for most of the platforms that you can think about. We've been on the Inc. 500, and we've gotten a few awards. Some of the kinds of work that we do include digital consulting, demand generation, experience optimizations, and data science and analytics, which is our foundation for most of the work that we do. And we have a bunch of proprietary solutions that we use across owned, earned, and paid media. We do digital marketing assessments, benchmarking. We have performance platforms that we leverage for our solutions. We have a predictive analytics SEO model. We also have a holistic search solution. And on the data analytics side, we have foundational capabilities all the way to advanced machine learning capabilities on analytics. I'm excited to have with me Irina Klein, Senior Managing Director at OneMain Financial. Irina, welcome to this webinar. Excited to have you here. I would love for you to do a quick intro about you as well as the firm, and we can get started.
Thank you, Shrikant. So much like Shrikant, I've been around for over 20 years in marketing strategy and partnerships. In 2019, I joined OneMain Financial as pretty much head of digital acquisition, managing digital marketing. In my previous life, I've worked across both industry and agency, various companies across various industries, Ditech, Digitest Health, as well as large tech and SAP and Unisys. And I'd love to spend just a few seconds on OneMain Financial in case some of our viewers don't know. We are the largest non-prime installment lender We do primarily personal loans across 44 states, majorly through our 1,400 plus branches. We have over 18 million customers and originated over $9.3 billion in loans last year. So with that, I'll turn it over back to Shrikant to take us into the content.
Thank you, Irina. So as Heather introduced, we are looking today at trends in paid search, primarily getting ready for 2024. As you can imagine, 2023 has been a whirlwind of changes that have happened. Every earnings call with Google and or with Microsoft that I've sat in and heard have been references to AI, which has been a big change that's going to drive performance marketing and definitely paid search and search in general. So today what we wanted to cover is give you a context of some of the changes that are happening across user behavior, across the search landscape in itself, and then continue to talk about what are the implications from a paid search perspective. What changes should you be planning for, expecting as you think about 2024? We also want to quickly talk about some of the privacy changes that are happening, which are going to be hitting us in 2024, especially with the cookies getting deprecated and also with changes with CCPA and the California regulations and all of that bits. And there are implications from a paid search perspective as well. And net, hopefully for you guys as a takeaway, some things that we, Irina and me, think are important for 2024 as takeaways as you start planning for that. So that's the agenda for it. Please let us know if there's anything that you want us ask us any questions about it, and we can go deeper into it. But let's get deep into it to get started. The first one around user behavior and the search landscape. So all of us as search marketers, we continue to think about what's happening with Google, what's Facebook doing, what are changes that are happening from the platform side of things. But more importantly, one of the things that we kind of take a little bit of a back step on is understanding users, understanding what kind of user behavior has changed over time. And the key one, the biggest one that we think about is Gen Zs. This is one of the most evolved search users that we have that are going to be adopting any changes that are happening in the search landscape in the next coming 1 year. One of the key things, as you can imagine, is the number of Gen Zs who are becoming adults is much more, and there has specific set of characteristics being digital natives. They are very, very nimble. They use all platforms equally, and when you think about their search journeys, their user journeys, they don't necessarily depend on Google and or Bing or any of the search engines. They go to different platforms, and as you can see on the charts on the left side, where we looked at some data, and what we see is product searches. Most of us do that, but Gen Zs more than others, they depend on Amazon, they depend on other platforms. Search comes way below in their thinking process of where they should be going when you start thinking about starting a user journey. The second bit is adoption to new technology. Gen Z users are very nimble with technology, and they start using voice assistants, they start using all of the texts that are there. So they are very evolved as users. And as you think about they getting older and right now becoming adults, they are at that cusp. It's an important demographic for us to be understanding. And Gen Zs, from our perspective, will likely be one of the fastest adopters of any change that's happening on search. The second trend, as you can imagine, similar to the Gen Zs, which we don't necessarily think about as much, but if you intuitively understand, is the emergence of multimodal search. So we all have used to text typing in and typing in search, but when you start using voice and visual search, these are things which are coming about much more faster than before. Pandemic accelerated some of the voice visual search. As you can imagine, they started using our Lens, Google Lens, and all of the other platforms, tech platforms that are there to actually search for things using QR codes and stuff. And that has accelerated much more. The other bit of change that we are seeing is the adoption of Alexa, Siri, all of the voice assistants that are there. These are going to make are going to become much more mainstream. Right now, they're still marginal, but we are seeing that coming about much more. And as you can imagine, Amazon, Google, Bing, Microsoft rather, are going to be focusing on this technology to be center stage of how they think about search in the future. The third change that is important that we are seeing is, which you all are aware of and which you all have been thinking about, is the emergence or becoming mainstream of SGE or search generative experience. And this is kind of the key reason why this becomes important is, as you can imagine, search now becomes conversational. You start thinking about search not just a specific keyword. It's not necessarily moving from it's moved from keywords to semantic search quite some time back, and now it's moving to conversational search. And what this does is it kind of is like having a full conversation with the browser, with the interface, and it gives you answers. It actually prompts you. It will also help you with new use cases that are coming about. What we hypothesize is this will give you answers as you all are expecting, as you all have played with it, to give you specific answers to questions that you have. And it's not necessarily going to one specific website, but aggregating data that's there in multiple websites and providing you that answer. With the integration of large language models like Lambda, ChatGPT, we also see this conversation continuing, right? It's not about just ending with one question. You would have a follow-up question to a follow-up question, and not necessarily that the keywords that you used are going to be the same ones. So net, what we assume happening in the course of next 1 year, this year and next 1 year, is search is going to become more conversational, will be visual, will be AI, and this is going to have significant implications as you think about what's happening on this change of search. The way Google responds, the SERP results page, is going to be much different than what it is. You will have an organic component, you'll have a paid component, you'll have a search generative experience component. The search generative experience component is still in beta. You're testing it out in a few countries. You don't know what the results are going to look like next year. But what we assume is this is going to be mainstream to how you think about search, be it on the paid side, be it on the organic side. That's going to be an important aspect of how we think about search. Irina, what are you seeing from your perspective as you think about search and the evolution of user journeys and stuff?
Well, for us, cost management, I mean, obviously it becomes important in terms of managing both SEO and paid results. But I think mostly from a practitioner's point of view, as you know, everybody's obviously, as you pointed out, talking about, the evolution of search and it becoming more visual and more interactive. But, for those of us who've been around for a while, new trends and behaviors are evolving all the time, right? Mobile at one point was new, social was at one point was new, but now it's becoming more mainstream. So from a practitioner's perspective, looking at all of this and thinking about how, what should I be doing? How should I be changing my strategies? I mean, obviously there are some new implications for practitioners, certainly looking at mobile first and developing strategies and platform with a mobile first approach. Some of it is new-ish, right? How do I continue to involve some of those things? Chatbots and virtual assistants, especially in financial services, whether it's for managing your, for us, it's branches, phone assistants, virtual assistants on the web, obviously super important. Increasing social media engagement, obviously, especially for Gen Zs, getting their information, not just from sort of traditional places that they're used to have, now they're going not just to, websites from the brands themselves, but obviously getting a lot of their information from, places like YouTube and TikTok and other places. So brands need to continue to evolve their presence there, but also the ever-present concerns. Accurate real-time information. That's something that, especially for financial services companies, consumers were always worried about their account balances, transactions, and other relevant financial data. They're continuing to be worried about that. Evolving feedback mechanisms. Younger consumers appreciate opportunity to share their opinions and having their voices heard, but all consumers appreciate that. So that's something that was always important. Simplifying onboarding process. All customers were always concerned about how do I make sure that that's something that's simple and easy. How do I, complete your loan information? How does that, translate and move forward? So some of these concerns are always present and have always, and will continue to be present regardless whether it's a Gen Z or a Gen X customer.
Cool. Thanks a lot for that. And this definitely is important just to have an understanding of interactivity and trying to understand this. And some of the challenges that you were mentioning resonate definitely. And the comments on this on the chat also are indicative of the importance of how we start thinking about various various implications that are there, concerns that you highlighted. With that, we wanted to go a little bit more deeper into, we set the stage saying here are the things that are happening or changing on search side of things, some existing, some new, but all of them relevant. Now, what are the implications, if you will, for as you start thinking about 2024 and as you start planning for 2024? There are a set of 8 implications that we are sharing with you. Feel free to ask any questions that you might have, but let's dive deep into this. So the first one is around paid ads becoming more integrated into the SGE environment. We have seen this in some use cases wherein we tested for some specific products. We saw links directly, definitely on the shopping side, the carousel side of things, also on paid search side of things, wherein we saw placement of paid ads in the SGE environment. And this is important because one of the questions, or one of the things that we've been looking at is trying to understand, will SGE as an environment be only limited to the organic side? It's not necessarily what we see. We're also seeing on specific use cases, on specific terms, we are seeing paid ads triggering and showing up on the SGE environment, and it's important because there are implications for it. As you have more ads showing up on the SGE environment, we predict a lower click-through rate for branded search ads. If you think about text ads that are on brand search, you will have a lesser click-through rate because people will be clicking on the SGE experience, and SGE experience could potentially give you the whole answer, and you don't necessarily have to click on any of these ads. The second bit is increased PMAX, because we're expecting this native format could be more integrated into the PMAX environment. We'll talk a little bit about the PMAX environment, but that's something that we're going to see more impressions on the PMAX side of things. And in the SGE itself, because of the richness of the content that's there that you're showing, and with a link that's there, we expect that to have a higher click-through rate compared to your branded search organic click-through rate. The last one, which is important and we're all struggling with as you think about what's the implications of the SGE side, be it on the organic or on the paid side, is we don't necessarily know enough. We don't have enough information about tracking. Now, is paid search and organic search both in this context? Will that be only lower funnel, or will that more bleed into mid and upper funnel? Because you now have answers that are coming about. You will have zero click queries. You will have zero click impressions. And all of these changes are things that we are expecting to happen in the paid search side of things. Definitely in 2024, we don't know the volume of queries that it's going to show up, but we expect it to be showing up for at least a set of queries. And as things evolve, we continue to write and speak about it, and happy to share our points of view on this one. That's the first implication that we are seeing for 2024. The second one is around expansions. Like, we were talking about Gen Zs being more conversational and search becoming more conversational. What does that mean, right? We used to have keywords and we used to trigger our ads and queries or bids on specific set of keywords. Now you can't do that anymore, because your conversations, it's a full-fledged conversation. You need to identify what is that question, or what is that question related to. And we are seeing match types changing significantly in the context of how Google is trying to answer this. We are seeing expansion. We're seeing different campaign types coming about. We are seeing keyword types also changing, because it's needed to ensure all of the queries that are coming about. Usually what we have seen is 20% of queries is head terms. That's where a lot of people fight in the auction about. All marketers are are fighting for those same set of keywords. But if you look at the long tail, there's a long tail of 80% odd queries. And now you need to figure out, how do I start getting value out of it? How do I start monetizing it? How do I start thinking about reaching out to those 80% of queries where people are not necessarily thinking about a product intent, but in some ways a longer tail query that's there? So we are going to see a lot more campaign type expansions. A few things that are happening, right? First one is on the SGE side of things. The new ways of searching is going to change the variations that are there, and you will continue to see that. The second one is exact match is no longer exact match. If you haven't seen it off late, it's changing significantly, and it's changing for the right reasons, right? It's expanding primarily because it can give you the answers for questions that you don't necessarily know. And then when you start supplementing it with Performance Max or Broad Match to fill in the gaps, you are able to reach out to all of the queries that you didn't necessarily start thinking about when we started writing out or setting out campaigns. And this is important both from a practitioner who's managing campaigns, and also is important for somebody who's a performance marketer who's looking at it from a broad swath to figure out where do I start spending some of this money in, and how do I start thinking about it. So that's the second second change that we expect happening. And continuing on the same one of the things that we will see is around. One of the things that we will see is around this is an example of how we are seeing the exact match changes that are coming about. Exact match, as expected, utilizes AI now, and it's expanded matching capabilities. When we were testing it out, we saw some accounts and some queries, exact match keywords were triggering roughly around 350 search queries. And that's huge, right? You're talking about a specific phrase between inverted commas, typical to what you would expect it to. But its original intent has evolved. It's now triggering for multiple queries, and it's going to help Google with connecting various search terms to things that are generated by the SGE with the targeted ads, because manually we can't necessarily do that. It's going to be much difficult for us to do that. The challenge, however, exists, right? When you start targeting for so much, which is similar to you going into the space that you have as a display marketer, you don't necessarily have control over it on targeting, and you sometimes are going to bleed out money on things that are there. So the key thing to realize are, one, figure out which are terms that you don't want exact match or even broad match to actually work on. So figure out those negatives that you want to guide the matching for the right intent, and then think about the right RSA ad copy so that your keyword, your ad copy to your landing page are all connected together. So this is something that we want to highlight as an opportunity that's there, but sometimes missed, and then leading to inefficient spends that we are seeing on paid search. The next one from our perspective is bidding strategies. I know all of us have been thinking about working on bidding, because this is where we start paying money to Google. Think about all the way from manual CPC to TROAS to all of the bidding strategies that are there, automated, manual, and all of that. It's continued to evolve. The funny story is, as we start talking to our clients, we see a bunch of them still using manual bidding strategies for reasons that they are specific for themselves, but there's still an opportunity to adopt smart bidding, which people have not necessarily done. And that's something that we recommend as much as possible, because it's not going to be easy for us to manage manually all of the opportunities that are there, and hence move to whatever, right? Move to eCPC, move to TCPA, move to TROAS, whichever bidding strategy works for you, but move from manual to automated. Smart bidding is one of the key things that I wanted to highlight on. We can talk about that at length, but that's an area which we see as a big opportunity that's missed for a lot of marketers, especially small and medium marketers. The second one is around responsive search ads. This is an interesting one because Google has started to make things easy for you, wherein they said, okay, we're going to use AI to mix and match the creative assets that you have and provide the best user experience, right? Think about the various head terms. Think about various headlines that you have. Think about the, excuse me. Think about the descriptions that you have. Think about the URLs that you have. You can have multiple combinations of these, but you don't know which of these are going to trigger the ad, which is going to be the best use experience for the user. And because you don't necessarily have a history of the user intent, you're letting Google's machine learning take over and then figure out what is the right ad creative from a text ads perspective. It will be super helpful. And when we've tested RSAs, it has definitely resulted in higher CTRs for our clients as we have looked at it. The third one is beyond exact and phrase. Look at related queries to understand where do you see more opportunity that is there. Are there things that you might not necessarily be thinking about? Do research of your keyword planner, understand what keywords you might be missing, what are things that you might be missing, and then put it into your broad strategy. And that way you will be able to get to queries, get to terms which you don't necessarily have used, and then those are opportunities that are there. So net, the idea is leverage Google's AI across smart bidding, across RSAs, across broad match to help with gaining some of the incremental traffic that you seem to be missing out on as you're going through making your search more effective. One of the other ones that we have looked at, which is an important one, is around value-based bidding. I don't know how many of you guys are using TROAS or TCPA as a metric or as a bidding strategy. But what we have seen is even TROAS as a bidding strategy works for a bunch of customers for whom the conversion window is at X number, right? Like it's not more than 2 weeks. If you have a longer conversion window, for example, in the cases of consumer products, consumer banking products, like what we work with a bunch of our clients, then you don't necessarily get all of that signals into your bidding strategy. And so you're struggling with figuring out whether I have the right bidding or don't have the right bidding. So we started segregating it. We started looking at different models that we can build out. And then what we saw is when we started looking at volume and value-based bidding, we saw a significant uptick in terms of the ROAS that we can see for some of our clients that we work with. Just as context, the way we think about it is volume-based bidding is when you start looking at internal data that you have from your CRM systems or even from your models that you have, connecting them back. So when we were testing this with a specific consumer banking client of ours, we said, okay, let's look at how do we set up the account. We started doing data passbacks from the internal systems back to that platforms. They have a CRM system, and then we were looking at it. And for credit cards and for personal loans, the process is similar, right? You have an application submit process, you have a qualified app, you have an approval process, and then you have a customer that you acquire. So this is something that you would think about as your target CPA acquisition strategy. But we don't know whether that customer is going to be the right customer or not the right customer, because you have various things that happen after after he becomes a customer. We don't have a good enough model of figuring out whether the customer is going to be profitable or not profitable. If you are a retail e-commerce kind of a brand, ROAS is going to be much easily defined, because you are buying something, you're selling something, you have some kind of a margin, and then you figure out what is the bidding that I have to apply, what is the ROAS that I want to apply on my bids, and then that's what you would optimize for. But in the case of some of these longer conversion cycle clients of ours, it's not easy to do that. And then as an example, in the credit card side, the success of that customer is going to be based on whether they're using the length of duration that they're using that credit card. What are they using for? How much money are they going to be spending it on? You have a credit limit, but that's not necessarily what they'd spend on, right? The other bit is, are they using for buying new stuff, or are they using to transfer money from other credit cards? And if you think about the personal loans, you also need to understand what is the loan repayment window. Like, do they have any delinquency that we are seeing, which are signals? Are they making their first payment? Are they making the third payment or the fifth payment? Those are signals which come about much later. But as you make that acquisition, that happens right away. So what we are seeing is, as an example, on the value and volume-based bidding on the bottom left side of the screen, different users based on where you have, if you start bidding for just on the CPA basis, you would have a inefficient model, because user 3 in this example is much more efficient than, let's say, user 2 or user 1. So you would start looking at value-based bidding, and these value-based bidding strategies are based on predictive modeling that you have to do offline, and then start loading that into your customer match segments. And when we did it with a few of our clients, what we realized is you're able to target high-value prospects, you're getting better ROI, and as metrics, what we have seen, like 279, roughly around 250% uplift in ROAS, which is a big number. And if you spend in millions on paid search, this number becomes much, much more important. The other bit, which I see some of the chat referring to this, but one of the key ones that we are talking about with all of our customers is around Performance Max, right? This was launched roughly around 2 years back. It's a AI-powered campaign, which is going to be an opportunity to tap into incremental conversion opportunities. Before PMax came along, you would have to have a search campaign, you would have to have a display campaign, you would have to have a YouTube campaign, and then all of the others, right? So that's a slew of campaigns that you would have to manage, but you don't necessarily know enough about where is the most likely conversion going to come about at your whatever cost per that you have. So you are trying to optimize it manually. Instead of that, PMax gives you an opportunity for you to integrate all of your campaigns, figure out what are the right signals that are there. You are able to power your expertise from what you want from your campaigns perspective, your ads perspective, and then combine that with the Google AI that they have in terms of figuring out how do I maximize for profitability. And this is something that Google has been speaking over the past, I'd say, 1 odd year, 2 odd years, in every earnings call and every client of ours. We are seeing them moving towards more portfolio based. This is, if you are a Search Ads 360 customer user, you understand the concept of a portfolio based bidding. This is similar to that. It's a portfolio based bidding, but you're not bidding across one product, but you're bidding across multiple products, and then you're trying to get efficiencies across all of them. And this has been super powerful as we have launched it across our clients. If you haven't, this is something that I highly recommend. Irina, I know we've done this for OMF. Thoughts? What do you think about how this has worked?
Yeah, and I think to your point, Shrikant, I think it's probably product dependent and portfolio dependent, right? For OneMain, it has been incredibly powerful, incredibly successful, especially paired with the NPV strategy, right? So and for us, I think it's important to say it's been sort of an incremental journey, right? We started with a TROS, we moved to NPV, we scaled NPV, and then we implemented PMAX on top of that. So it's, I'm as a practitioner, right? I am sort of, I don't want to say like this is a, something that'll work for everybody. I also don't want to say that you can like jump into everything right away. But, with the help of you and your team, right, we've been able to sort of take incremental steps. And this has been an incredibly powerful, campaign for us, to the point where we've been able to bring down our cost per funded unit down by about 2x, right? So, which has been incredibly powerful for us. And we're going to continue to scale that significantly going into 2024.
Thanks, Irina. One of the key things that I want to call out, this is a very powerful opportunity that's there, but also it is important for folks to set up PMAX right. Like if you think about PMAX as I just set a budget, I set a target CPA, whatever it is, and then leave it, it's not going to be efficient because the inventory is much broader. So you have to think through to say, okay, what is it that I want to do? How do I start optimizing it? Do I have the right CPA? Am I getting the right leads? And then start tweaking that a little bit, and then get that signals in as much as possible as you're trying to figure out what is the incremental value that we're getting. And as mentioned by Irina, we are seeing definitely 2x in some situations wherein you are getting value from it. It's not going to be as cheap as branded search for sure. It's going to be similar to your generic search, which is more your non-branded search, but it is an efficient way to actually run campaigns across all of your product lines that are there and across all of the Google inventory that's there. So one of the other things that we are seeing as a new change that is coming about with the whole search generative experience is around automatically created assets. So this is something that was there, like I was referring to RSAs before, but this is RSA on steroids in some ways, right? Basically, what Google has done is it's taken what we think about as RSAs and said, okay, now instead of you writing the headlines and you writing the descriptions, I'll take what you give me, but I will modify it, I will tweak it using the language models, right? So basically, the way you would do it is you look at your keywords, you look at your landing pages, you give it your headlines and descriptions, and then your relevant web pages that are there for your assets. And then Google is going to create new headlines, new descriptions, and then it's going to run ads on it. And as expected, right now, it's too early, but they're seeing it to have a higher click-through rate. So key things that are going to be important for the new automatically created assets is this. The first positive is you will have an improved user experience. Users will definitely love it. We expect that. We also are expecting a higher conversion rate in the sense like CTRs will be much better. And then you don't necessarily have to create multiple descriptions that you would have to do in the past, but you would just create one and then it's going to generate them automatically. The key thing is, as expected, you have much limited control. You don't necessarily know what is the actual keyword, actual description that is going to show up. And then you would have to have much more oversight on what worked and what did not work. And especially if you're in a regulated industry like Irina and I work on the banking side of things, it's something that you have to work with very closely on the compliance side of things, because they are keen to understand what is it that we're showing, like what is the ad creative, what is the pitch that we're making to our clients. So you have to think about if your clients, your industry, of you as a if your company requires oversight and there is control that's required, this might not necessarily be a great one. But for others, wherein you're creating multiple ad copies on a regular basis, RSAs is things that you're doing on as a norm, you definitely will get benefit of thinking about using automatically created assets, primarily for the efficiency that's going to bring you in creating multiple ad copies, and also The idea is it's going to reduce creative fatigue from a user perspective. It's not like every user, even if I click on the same ad twice, on the same query twice, I will not necessarily see the same ad. So there might be more interest in it, which is going to lead to a higher click-through rate. And this is an important one that we're seeing, and it's going to kick off and be available for all users in the next excuse me, in the next quarter, or next in the next I'd say 2024. The last one, which is important and much more valuable, similar to what we are seeing on the Google side, I don't want to discount this, is the changes that are happening on the Bing side. As all of you guys are aware, ChatGPT was the one which brought in this whole SGE experience and changes to SGE to the forefront fall of 2023. And then fast forward, we saw Google come in with Bard, and then the SGE changes that are coming about. Similar to the SGE changes on the paid side in Google, we also see a whole lot of changes on Bing around Prometheus AI. That's the model that they're calling it, which is combining both search and then chat together to deliver an elevated experience. And it's similar in the experience is similar, wherein the query gets broken down, your long tail query gets broken down into simpler bite-sized search terms. And then Bing is using those search terms to get more recent information. One of the early things that when you tested out ChatGPT and any of the large language models was data was only till 2022. Now you have data till very recent, very updated data. So you are able to get more recent information from the Google index or the Bard index and the Bing index as well. And that gives you most up-to-date information. The second thing is, once you get that information, it's piecing together, the language models are piecing together what information to give you in the answer. And then it not only limits it to organic, but it's also showing in paid ads into that. So it's citations, links. Think about native ads that if you have used it in the past. This is something that we're going to see more native kind of a feature set coming about. And both between Bing and search and Google search, I don't see much difference in terms of what is happening on this space. It's going to continue to be competing with one another. Where we net out, it'll depend on where the users are. Like if our users are spending more time on Google, we'll continue to push that. If you're seeing more users moving towards Bing, we'll continue to push that. But that's the way you would have to think about it, saying, what is my query mix? Is 80% of my traffic coming from search platform X versus search platform Y? And then figure out what is my spends that I have to have. Because there's one of the questions that I keep getting asked, saying that, should I spend more on Google versus more on Bing? And this is the way I would think about it. The other key thing to also remember is, in some situations, you would find that Bing CPAs are cheaper than Google CPAs. So have a look at that. If you find that it's more efficient, if you're getting enough traffic and you're getting enough leads, figure out whichever ones work for you. And there are some demographics who use Bing more than Google. Those are things that you'd have to look at and then figure out which way you would want to go. From the SGE experience perspective, from the way you would apply some of these models or how you think about bidding strategies and all, the marginal difference is very little. Both of them have similar models that are there and similar ways to work towards it. So those are set of implications that we have in general of what's happening for 2023, which we expect for 2024. One other thing, which is an important one, is going to be around privacy and privacy changes and implications. I did mention briefly, but as you are aware, California and a bunch of other states have started launching the CCPA, GDPR, and CPRA regulations. All of these primarily to help provide users these necessary controls on privacy, which they did not have before. And it's important because this kind of leads to user consent, wherein you have to take user consent for some of the changes that are happening. The other bit also is it depends on how much you can rely on data that's coming from other sources. So key things, why this is important, right? Basically, as you're setting up privacy safe practices, as you're setting up your consent modes on your web browsers and all, you would see inefficient conversion tracking. We expect conversion tracking on your platforms to become less efficient and leading to paid search efficiency. In situations wherein you are on last click tracking or you are not necessarily looking at data-driven attribution, this kind of becomes much more important because you don't necessarily know how effective your paid search is. So what we are seeing, at least in the initial experiments and some of these studies and analysis that we have done is advertisers will face a drop in cart conversions, specifically attributed conversions, primarily because of in implementing consent banners, right? And then this also leading to impacting how you think about bidding strategies, how you think about ROAS, attribution, and then net revenue. This is the challenge that we're going to see more so as we get into 2024. The way you would adapt for it is Google Consent Mode is going to help you get that. It's going to help you measure, drive more measurement accuracy because you have to implement some of these things. However, there are some challenges, right? We see when we're testing it out, users don't necessarily like to accept cookies, or they don't necessarily understand that. You also will see a drop off in third-party cookies that are there, leading to some level of conversions getting dropped. And then Google has launched a whole bunch of features, be it around universal, rather GA4, not deprecated universal analytics, now Google Analytics 4, and the whole attributed conversion narrative that they have, which kind of gives you a perspective of how should I start thinking about getting the real value and getting real understanding of whether my conversions are going in the right direction or not. So using consent mode is going to be important, right? It will help you with aiding data gaps that are there as you think about conversion modeling, and also will safeguard privacies that you already have in a consent aware environment. But both of these are changes that are happening. It's not something that we are doing. What does this mean for a paid search marketer is around thinking about how do I then leverage my own data. So more often than not, we have relied on all kinds of data, specifically third-party, second-party data, in terms of building out our customer pools and our customer lists, and then we start loading them back into the platform, be it around customer match or RLSA lists and all of that bits. Now you cannot use anything other than your first-party data. Your first-party data in some ways is golden, right? This is your own data from your own websites. But what we have seen when we've spoken to a bunch of marketers, clients of ours, some of them, is that they don't necessarily use them as much. So opportunity that's there is you activate your RLSA list much higher, like leverage them as much as possible by using first-party data. And this is going to be an important opportunity for you to stress on that. And what you need to do now is going to be about making sure that your customer data, your first-party customer data, is as robust as possible. Make sure that your tags are set up in the right way. You're getting all of the data that you need, all of the fields that you need to make those decisions. The second one is you can also use your first-party data to bolster your smart bidding strategy. You can look at saying, okay, which segments of mine don't have as much? Like, where am I spending more on cost of acquisition, which is very high? Is there any segment which might be socio demographic, and any of that cohort that you want to look at, any signals that you want to look at in your own data, and then say, okay, suppose anybody who is on like this, right? The third one is you start looking at how do I optimize my ad copies? How do I optimize my creatives? How do I optimize my keywords? Primarily because I get a better sense of my first-party data. This is enabled through Google Ads Data Manager. There's a new tool that Google has launched, which is going to be available and sometime in Q4. But understanding your first-party data, leveraging it much more, is going to be an important one as you think about driving paid search efficiency and not depending on other data aggregators and data collectors. And this is something that we want to stress on as you think about paid search and changes that are happening. So net, what does all of this mean, right? How do you think about it? What are key things that we want you to take away? The few things from our perspective, SEO and SEM, like I mentioned, is going to get much more integrated, much more tighter. We are seeing search more holistically. We use this phrase very actively, at least with our clients and with teams that we work with, because at the end of the day, a user is not looking for a paid search result or an organic result. He's looking for a result and is coming to the SERP for a specific result. And now that distinction gets much more blurry when you start thinking about integration of SG, the search generative experience. So understand the whole search journey, is look at it search holistically from both SEO and SEM perspective. And the second one is users are looking for information, and they're not necessarily looking at your specific keywords. They are not necessarily thinking about lower funnel as well. This is one of the things that we are seeing. we are seeing we are seeing paid search, organic search in general becoming more full funnel, and that kind of leads to saying, okay, what is it that I want to measure on? Do I want to measure on only acquisition, or do I want to measure on the full funnel journey that's there? So you have to understand where is it that you are going to be measuring, and thinking about paid search or search in general as a holistic strategy, not just for your lower funnel. The second one, which is obvious, all of the things that we spoke about, is leveraging automation as much as possible. Feed your machine learning tools in AdWords, in SA 360, whichever platforms that you're using, Bing, with the right signals that are there, and then figure out what are the right high value acquisitions that you want to go after, and then see if you can pull them in, and then leverage automation to, as much as possible. Put the right set of guardrails. I don't want you to spend money on automation and then say, Shrikant, it didn't work. You have to set the right guardrails for it. And then once you do that, you will be able to get efficiency as much as you want from the platforms that are there. The third one, as I was mentioning just now, is maximize your first-party data. Leverage that however much you can to drive more paid search efficiency. On the keyword side, this is an important one, because this is how your users are coming into your platform, right? Into your reaching out to you. Monitor the shifts in keywords, understand what are the user intents. Long tail questions, which I'm stressing much more, is becoming more and more important. Conversational keywords are going to be much more important. So understand all of your keyword strategies. Don't know if you use Keyword Planner, if you have custom tools that you have wherein you think about keywords, and then start using those Keyword Planner models that are there to come up with understanding, here is what I thought about, and here are the sets of keywords that you're looking at, and then here is how things are changing. Use that in a holistic way so that you can even start building out content that your page, that your website might not necessarily have. It's not always about acquisition. It could be about content which is informational, wherein they're starting to look at mid-funnel queries, wherein they're starting to compare various things. So you use the keyword planner tools and other tools that are there to figure out what kind of content you want to do. That's the one that I was talking about, addressing intent with relevant content topics. The other one, which is also important in this whole context, is you will have topics with no search volume, but it might be important for you to start thinking about, because you will get visibility. And as newer and newer content comes about and you start building about, you then start getting pulled into the SG experience, and then you are able to figure out what can I do with those keywords, and how do I start playing with. The last one, which is the most complex one, which is something that we all lived by over the past, I'd say 10-15 years, it is about efficacy of paid search, which was so great, and you were able to measure to the real dollar, real cent. You knew exactly who was coming in from where. All of these is great, and that's what made in some ways paid search much more efficient, or rather much more attractive than, let's say, TV advertising or newspaper advertising. But now that's getting a little bit in question. It's going to get evolved. It'll evolve, but you'll have to be ready for some of the changes that are coming about. It's not just about cost per acquisition. It might be about new metrics that you have to think about. Is it number of impressions? It's zero clicks that we were talking about. Zero click impressions are going to be an important one. Is it just about showing up in SG? Is that good enough? Or do you have to actually click on it? And now, how does this play in when you have branded search and branded queries, wherein a user might understand based on your bidding strategy, might show up, might learn about you, but then he's not necessarily converting here. He's going back to some other place and organic, and then coming back, or directly going to your .com website and then converting. All of these will evolve. So one thing which I'd suggest, recommend, Irina's and me and our teams have been talking about it, is like, how do we think about measuring this in a more effective way in 2024? You have to have some framework of things, but it will continue to evolve. It's not going to be that you have a set answer today to say, here is how I'm going to measure this. So all of these are changes that we are seeing and we're expecting to happen in 2024. Irina, from your perspective, what are you seeing?
Well, oops.
Sorry.
No problem. So I think so. I was actually smiling a little bit because for a company with an offline conversion like us, right? Some of these questions that have we've always been at a little bit of a disadvantage because you have an online journey that ends in an offline conversion. So in a way, we've been thinking about this for quite some time. So, unifying your customer journey, right? This idea about making sure that online and offline channels, customers having consistent experience regardless of where they interact with your brand, and making sure that measurement is consistent is obviously important and has always been important to us. Offline conversion tracking, implementing mechanisms to track offline conversion, in-store purchases, phone inquiries, unique codes, dedicated phone numbers. For those of us who are in the offline conversion business, that's the stuff that's like bread and butter. And clearly it's going to become even more important as tracking online conversion becomes even harder. The oldie but goodie customer feedback and surveys, right? NPS, making sure that customers, that we collect customer feedback, conducting surveys, understand impact of where they converted, where they started, and which channel has an impact on their decision-making process. Staff training, right? Disposition codes. I know that's not sort of the best way to capture feedback, but it's super important. And for for businesses like us, it's always been a way to capture feedback. Sort of obvious one, testing and optimization, just, putting a campaign out there and testing it and making adjustments and testing again. So, those are the kinds of things that have always been important to us and will continue to be even more important going into 24.
Cool. Thanks, Ivina. With that, we are at the end of our presentation. I know we have around 7-8 minutes. Happy to take any questions that you might have. I haven't seen the questions, but love to see if there are any questions that you think, Heather, that we should be looking at.
Srikant and Irina, that was great stuff. But a very engaged chat. I love to see that. So not only did people ask a lot of questions, we also had people answering questions. So I love that community focus that we get going here. We do have some questions. So let's get to it. I will tell you, we will not be able to answer them all, but we will certainly do our best. And anything we don't get over or get done, we will send over to the iQuanti team afterwards. So Nathan, we do have a couple questions about PMax. So
sure.
Let me get these over here and see if we can get these combined for you. So, all right. What results have you seen with Google's PMax campaigns targeting leads, contact forms, phone calls, etc.? And then we have somebody else who's talking about how the campaign performance has slowed drastically. It started off working well, generating leads, and then drops. So maybe a little bit of background on there and some best practices.
So first one about results that we're seeing with PMax targeting leads. What we have seen is similar to what Irina was mentioning in what we've seen for OneMain Financial with some of our clients, wherein they are lead gen kind of campaigns. Even there, we have seen roughly around 1.5 to 2x in terms of conversions. And it's not necessarily that we are not seeing false conversions that you're talking about, Nathan. But I understand would love to know what kind of campaigns you're running. Just email us, and then maybe we can help you provide some more insights as to what might be driving it. But we haven't necessarily seen any inflated conversions that you're talking about. And it could be the settings that you have built it out and how you have set up your PMax campaigns, but we haven't seen that as a challenge. The second question was around performance slowed drastically, then drops all of a sudden. This is interesting. So just so that I understand, looks like PMax campaign was performing well, but then over the past 2 months, it's kind of slowed down drastically. When you say slowed down, I'm assuming that it's not giving the number of leads that it was giving and then it kind of slowed down. It could be a combination of various things. I don't know what industry, I don't know which specific client. It could be a combination of seasonality. It could be a combination of number of people in the auctions, more people starting to bid on the same terms. It could be much more number of people adopting PMax for similar terms that you have, keywords that you have. That could be leading to do this. And absolutely right in the say that in what you're saying, that are more people adopting this. Absolutely, from talking to Google and their reps, they have been pushing PMAX very aggressively. And if you look at any of their earnings calls or any of their blog posts, PMAX is something that they're pushing over the past, let's say, 1 odd year. So you are seeing a higher number of users who are adopting to PMAX. That could be leading to more competition. I don't know if there's seasonality in your industry that could be leading to some of this as well. So unless until I look at the campaigns more in detail, I wouldn't be able to answer. But net, what we are seeing is those are the key reasons that might be happening to some of the changes that you're seeing.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Shrikant. All right, so we might have time for one more. So for the banking industry or other finance industries, do you have any recommended best practices? For example, broad versus phrase match keywords, max conversions versus max clicks, targeting keywords like best or near me. So it says they do a lot of search and display retargeting, YouTube retargeting, but any specific recommendations for finance?
Irina, you want to?
I would say all of it, right? I think it's so situational. It's kind of hard to say. Certainly for branches, right? We have 1,400 plus branches. So for us at local is very important. We put a lot of emphasis on it and we'll continue to do so. So clearly, if you have local retail shops, it is a differentiator in the industry. So I can just say for us it is, and we do put emphasis on it.
And again, about max conversion versus max clicks, it depends on what you're targeting or what you're looking at. What is the journey that you're looking at? It could be simply going through the whole full hog and so TCPA, or just saying, okay, I just need to know traffic that's coming to my website and whatever that might be. But one of the things that we are seeing is changes with, as Irina was mentioning, branch banking versus branchless is going to drive whether you have to have or you don't have to have. We were talking about some geo tests that we were doing as well to figure out what is the radius that I want for DMA tests of some kind so that I'm able to target specifically. But there are a bunch of best practices across the whole search gamut of things. It primarily depends on banking and financial industry. While it's still narrow, it's a very big industry with various clients of different kinds, size, location, what kind of business, what kind of strategy that you're looking at from a search side of things. So that will all drive whether you want to have a specific bid strategy versus more broader. One of the key things that we are seeing is across all industries, not just banking, is about the rise in CPCs that are going about because a lot more people competing for the same auction terms. So your CPAs also should be going up. In that situation, figuring out whether you want to go with broad or phrase is even working. You don't necessarily have to go broad and phrase, but you also need to think through to say, okay, what is my conversion journey and where does it end? All of that will result in figuring out what bidding strategy, what keyword strategy, what kind of terms that you want to bid on.
Okay, and one more question on PMAX, and this is from Sabrina. How do you account for legal obligations within highly regulated industries like finance if you're considering PMAX campaigns? So anything to consider there?
So absolutely, this is an important one. And like I was mentioning, the way we have done with a bunch of our clients is we get compliance pre-approvals on descriptions, on headlines, on keywords, and on URLs as well, and then let it run. And not just on PMAX, it also on RSAs that what we are seeing. We need to get pre-approvals from compliance so that they understand that the granular elements that go into creating that ad is all approved by compliance and the regulatory group that's there in the firm. And then you use them to start running campaigns. So that's the way we have gotten across. But sometimes in some specific clients, they were like, I want to see all of the ad copies that it's going to come about. And I was not able to do that. None of us were able to do it. And it's a challenge. And then they didn't necessarily adopt that strategy. So it's going to be dependent on how you are able to convince your compliance teams in terms of this is how we're trying to adopt it. And here is how it's going to work. And if they are okay with it, you can adopt it. Otherwise, you cannot. Irina, anything else to add?
No, I think that's about it, right? It depends on the flexibility of the team, and you give as many options as you're able to physically produce.
Perfect. I'm just scrolling through all of the chat, and through all of the questions. And so we'll send the leftover questions that we couldn't get to over to Shrikant. We'll send that over to your team. But definitely, I'm seeing future webinars on this topic for sure. So good stuff, everybody. Thank you so much for participating, so much for engaging in the chat, so much for attending. Yeah, Jonathan. Good. So thanks, Shrikant. Thanks, Irina, for being here. Before we let you go, tell the people where to find you.
So reach out to us. For now, I'm just going to ask you to about all questions that you have to shrikant.l@iquanti.com. Things that are relevant to banking and which I think Irina will be able to add value. We'll share it with her and she'll share her perspective. But for us to filter all of the questions that are coming about, just reach out to us at shrikant.l@iquanti.com and look forward to hearing from you.
Perfect. Again, thank you both for being here, and we'll see you at the next SCJ webinar. Hope you all have a great day. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.